Ladies, gentlemen, fellow Kryptonians out there, it's fantastic to see your faces because today I know we've already done an in-depth trailer breakdown on the Superman official trailer, but what I promised was to go even deeper with you, basically going back and forth with ideas, theories, things that maybe you wanted to ask me about in the trailer that I might not have covered. So I hope you're going to enjoy this video. I'm probably away right now when this is going up, so if any crazy breaking news happens, you know, I'm away, but this should be more than enough for you guys to chew on. Before we get into all of this, before we get into that first question or idea or theory, if you will, a quick word from this video's sponsor, FanHome. I'm very happy to say that we're back with FanHome again, who I've worked with several times before on the channel. And if you're new here or you don't know already, FanHome are very well known for their large catalog of fantastic collectible models. And so this time, I'm very happy to say that they've sent me their first couple of issues of the John Wick Ford Mustang model. So with this subscription, you can build out your very own faithful replica of the 1969 Ford Mustang that John Wick uses, and it gets to a whopping 59 centimeters in length. And when complete, I mean, you could just see how sleek this thing looks. The new collection from FanHome offers this high quality die-cast metal and injected molded ABS materials ready to assemble issue to issue. I also really like how it features extra details such as something as simple as working headlights for brake lights and even turn signals, even the doors and windows having opening and closing mechanisms to, of course, reproducing the roar of the Mustang's V8 engine. Now, each package you receive also comes with these magazines that I showed earlier that not only explores the cars of John Wick, but also the characters, setting, and plot of the John Wick franchise, and of course, the assembly guide for each issue's parts, which are really simple and easy to follow. So with all of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a big John Wick fan, perhaps you've been wanting to get into the realms of model building to display a high detailed model that you actually built yourself, then click on the link in the description of this video. Also, it's probably pinned in the top pinned comment of that comment section, and start collecting your very own John Wick Ford Mustang model today. Also, don't forget to use my personal code in the description, or it might be appearing on screen in the checkout to help support the channel and let them know where you came from. So first up with Brody Walker 216 saying, I just want to say I loved the trailer. I think the movie looks great visually and the cinematography is excellent. This is the most excited I've been for a DC movie since I don't know when. Now, I would love to know from you guys, because obviously there's a range of different opinions out there. Do you feel how Brody felt about the official trailer? Do you think the teaser trailer was better? Do you think that they could have done something more in the official trailer? Now, more on the actual official trailer front here from Nanu421 saying, what do you think about the amount of views that it generated? I know that trailers rarely outperform teasers, but I thought it would do more by now. I still think the movie's gonna do well in the box office though, but I am just a little confused. So the official trailer in terms of views, right now, as of when recording this video, was uploaded 6 days ago. It's at 27 million views. That is very, very good in my opinion. Now, as you said yourself, even though it hasn't surpassed the teaser, which I don't think any of us really expected, as you again said yourself, trailers rarely outperform the first look, the first tangible look, the teaser of something. So that's why the first trailer's got a crazy amount of views. But 27 is still very, very good. So just to kind of gauge another thing here, and I'm not deliberately trying to be like, oh, Fantastic Four versus Superman. I'm just trying to say this is a summer of multiple comic book movies, Fantastic Four, Jurassic World Rebirth, and Superman, that we all know are contending in the box office. And a month ago, not just 6 days ago, the Fantastic Four official trailer, 1 month ago, is at 19 million views. And Superman in only 6 days is at 27 million. And I believe it surpassed 19 million, the Fantastic Four's official trailer count, within just 3 days. Do correct me on that if I'm wrong, but you get the idea. For me, this is great. People are seeing Superman roll before their movies in the theaters, so even if there's millions of people who still haven't seen the official trailer on YouTube, they'll probably go to the cinema at some point and see it then. And I hope that they get wowed by it, because I do feel like that official trailer, whatever critiques or feedback you may have about it, is that it did showcase like a really wide range of things that the movie has to offer. Now, speaking of what it showcased or maybe didn't showcase, here we have from Cam Robinson 3 saying, surprised we haven't seen Superman use his abilities yet, like heat vision, ice breath, etc. I'm sure he will. That's one thing I wanted to see in the official trailer. Maybe that's something they'll save for the actual movie itself. Can't wait. Yes, one of my wants for the official trailer was to see Superman use his powers a bit more. And we haven't. If anything, we've seen the Hammer of Baravia use heat vision. That's if it's not, supplied by technology of the Hammer of Baravia suit. We saw in that kind of Phantom Zone-y pocket dimension place, there's that mystery figure using heat vision, which could be the Hammer of Baravia, it could be Ultraman, or it could be a souped-up Lex Luthor going full-on All-Star Superman Lex, where he takes the exogene serum, which gives him Superman's powers for 24 hours. There's a range of theories out there, as you can tell. I did think we would see something more in the trailer from Superman, but we didn't really, which I'm actually okay with now in hindsight, because I'm looking forward to seeing him use his super breath, his cold breath, his heat vision in the movie now. I mean, sure, there's every chance that after another trailer, which I do expect we will be getting, that could showcase it. We've had toys list with ice hands, which are supplied by his cold breath. That's in the toy description. But then again, we need to remind ourselves that there's many toys that release that have features or even suits in them that don't appear in the movie. I'm sure Gunn has got some awesome moments of showcasing Superman's abilities in the movie in ways that we haven't necessarily seen before, but maybe we should just save it for the movie. Now, going back to the trailer, don't forget that, normally movies have a teaser trailer, an official trailer, and a final trailer, and then you kind of sprinkle a bunch of TV spots around and about the place. Gunn even said himself before the official trailer came out, you've only seen a teaser. You haven't even seen official trailer 1.0 yet. The official trailer was 1.0. So that kind of tells me, well, I'm sure he's going to have a number larger than 1 in terms of promo trailers, right? So we're going to see trailer 2.0. If you have any wants for another trailer, would it be seeing his abilities like heat vision, ice breath, or would you actually want stuff like that reserved for the film itself? So up next from Will M6166 saying, I think the Gotham Flood Easter egg was out there just in case of a merger with the Reeves verse. Kind of like something they can fall back on to maintain continuity, and if not, just a cool little wink at the audience. Guys, I swear to God, it would never end, will it? So, I've received a lot of comments from you guys saying, and I'm not even on about Will M specifically here, Will's just kind of pointing it out, but a lot of people have been commenting on my previous videos saying, Boba, what do you think about the Gotham floods, floods in Gotham Easter egg on the advertising board or the screen in Metropolis when Superman's fighting the kaiju? And I just think, man, it's kind of crazy fascinating how a Mandela effect happens. And when I first saw it, I have to admit, I rolled my eyes. It's like people just still won't give up on the idea of the DCU merging, or should I say Matt Reeves' Batman, Pattinson's Batman merging with the DCU, and basically doing that whole thing where when we eventually see Batman in the DCU, it's like Pattinson in the future from his movies, that is. But if you actually look at the screenshot of the news, it doesn't say Gotham anywhere. It doesn't. And I know I'm getting passionately frustrated right now because it's like, why? So what it says is, major floods cause suffering. Where does it say major floods in Gotham cause suffering? But no, major floods causes suffering could be anywhere in the bloody world. in the world. Some state in America, who knows, in the DC universe. It could be flooding from the kaiju breaking a bit of a, I don't know, city wall or something like that, because we do see that crack in that, like, in the middle of that water, and maybe that causes some structural damage and some floods happen there. But it could honestly just be anywhere in the world. People are like screenshotting and looking and zooming and enhancing where the floods were taking place in the background of that billboard, being like, oh my god, this is like a certain location we saw in the Batman movie. It's just, look, no. Okay, so Colton5105 says, sorry to double dip with comments, but obviously one of the longest running theories that has fascinated me is the potential of Ultraman being a clone and David's acting double. I would love to hear your thoughts on how actually possible this is, especially with the bleached eyebrows theory from way back. Could have been a distinct way to differ David. Probably wrong, but I still feel like we know nothing about the third act and anything is possible. And we have Claudia, BCR, I'm probably going to butcher that, but regarding Ultraman, I'm starting to entertain the possibility that he's not an exact clone of Superman, but one of the first of Lex's failed attempts to mix his DNA with Superman's. What I mean is, maybe the face behind the cowl isn't Corenswet's, but Holt's. And then lastly, the comic book burrito. You see a lot of people asking about this. Based on what evidence we have so far, do you believe Ultraman being a clone of Superman is more likely, or is there a chance it could be possibly someone like Parasite? So as Colton says here, I do agree, especially with what I was saying a little while ago, with how the trailers are showing only a certain part of the movie, often quite very early on, but I do think, for example, when Superman is flying here in that space between spaces, pocket dimension-y place, going up against that person, launching heat vision at him, that is probably a final act thing. I mean, I could be wrong, but yes, it keeps begging the question, who really is Ultraman? And I think people would still be speculating about Ulysses and suggesting other characters like that, if it wasn't for toys that have been officially released now saying DC's Ultraman. He is Ultraman, period, but having said that, you guys know my thoughts on this. I think that Gunn will still do something influenced by possibly other characters out there, and obviously these suggestions have been Bizarro, Parasite, and technically, yes, it wouldn't be this Superman from an alternate universe from the crime syndicate that Luthor brings over here. And I've still seen some people entertain that. I just want to talk about that very briefly. People are saying that, if Luthor can access maybe pocket dimensions and stuff like that, maybe Ultraman comes from over there. So maybe Ultraman truly is something similar to the comics in the sense that Luthor gets an alternate universe Superman from the crime syndicate, an evil Superman to come over here, and that's why he covers him up and stuff. I don't really get that theory. For me, it ends as soon as, okay, if Luthor went over there to another reality and, knocked on the door of, this other Earth's and this other reality's Superman, the evil Superman, this Ultraman in this movie, and was like, hey, can you come over to my universe and just, help me out here? Maybe, we'll arrest Superman. Oh, you'll get to, push his face into the ground and stuff maybe you'll get to fight him in this stadium. Do you want to do that? Why would he, he might be like, bro, I can't be bothered. I've got to go see my girlfriend. I don't know. Do you see what I mean, though? Why would he agree to, come over to this reality? It doesn't really add up to me. All I've said is that I believe that U on his chest is literally Ultraman, but yes, knowing Gunn and the way he's adapted characters in the past, I do think that he will be an amalgamation of influences and creating something new. Now, this could be for better or for worse, because that could work well, but then again, it might not work well. There's fears that if he blends a bit of, let's just say, Bizarro in there visually, then that means, well, because you've already done basically this heavy visual Bizarro influence onto DC's Ultraman, then that probably discounts us seeing actual Bizarro in the future of the DCU, which would have never have been a guaranteed thing, but that point being raised is still a good point nevertheless, right? So I'm not sure. I think if we take into account what I said about it not literally being an alternate universe's Superman, I still think that it may very well be a clone. Now, what I really like about Claudia's suggestion here is that I've never really considered too much that what if it's actually a clone of Lex, but enhanced with Kryptonian DNA, basically kind of like a Superboy situation. And he covers him up because, sure, the original theory has been that maybe he's covered up this man's face, Ultraman's face, because it's David Corenswet's Clark Kent's Superman's face. But what if it's also, hey, this guy looks exactly like me, so since I've cloned myself, I kind of need to hide his identity so people don't think that I'm going around doing this stuff. And then that could be it. And that could be a way to still get Holt under a suit, filming scenes of action with David Corenswet as Superman. But it's not really the Lex Luthor, but he still, obviously gets to act that as the Ultraman double. That's a really cool theory. I actually really like that. But what if it isn't Lex under the Ultraman suit and it is Superman? Well, that's the original theory, and that could be true. Like, no matter what, I don't think you cover up, on the bottom line, a face like that, like, all the way down, unless you want to conceal who is in there. So I do believe that it's either David Corenswet Superman or Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, but cloned. I do think you might also want to cover him. There is that theory of, because it could be a sorcery scientific creation of Luthor's, that he degrades and degenerates from the Yellow Sun or something like that. That would be another comic book influence, of course. So he has every aspect of his skin covered. He has these, heavy goggles on, so absolutely no light can get through. I think that's a strong theory as well. But what I do like is that even though we know that this guy is called Ultraman, we can't guarantee as a fandom who he is, and that's exciting to me. Like, is it a clone of Superman? Or is that too simple and what we've been thinking for months? And what if it's Luthor? What if it is a version of himself that he wishes he could be, in terms of how Superman just has this inherent ability to do this stuff, but now he's created a version of himself and he's like, I don't want to call him Superman 2.0. Now, what's better than Super Ultra, right? So I will be, a version of me will be Ultraman. I could go round and round and round in circles with this for ages, but I'm kind of happy that I can. I'm kind of happy that none of us really, 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 really know what the actual story is with the man behind the mask. And if anything, how does it end? If Luthor created a clone of himself, how did he become so controlled and docile to his commands? Doesn't he crave his own freedom? Here's all that. If he created a Superman clone, I think there'd be the same questions there. This is stuff that I think I will take into account with the writing of the movie, because, that's something I'd be like, okay, really cool character, really enjoyed this. But if you have literally cloned somebody and they have the ability to, take Superman in, talk, understand speech and stuff like this, I feel like they're going to have decent motivations in of their own right, as a being, even if a created being. But then again, there's the whole parasite theory, which would be pretty damn cool. But, why, I guess the whole idea behind Ultraman and the Ultraman suit and presentation could just be Luthor Corp's, Luthor's, title for that character, in the same way, they did Sentry, Val did Sentry in Thunderbolts, or, Vought in The Boys. This is Luthor's Ultraman, but really it's this parasite thing underneath that black suit who has all of these unique abilities because of who Parasite is. Again, we don't know, but I would love to know who, you think Ultraman's going to be with everything we've covered here. And B, who do you want Ultraman to be? Now, from Hammerbro or Hammerbro24, do you think Batman could appear in the post-credit scene? I really feel like I doubt it. I mean, I guess you could never say never here, and you could argue that Gunn being Gunn could do that thing that fan said that he would eat a shoe over, and they suggested doing that diner scene with Batman and Superman drinking a cup of coffee or something opposite each other. And Gunn literally replied a couple of years ago, would you actually eat a shoe or something? And then he kind of said, okay, see you in a few years. And people have been clinging on to that, thinking, okay, but Gunn could actually kind of do that in a post-credit scene kind of thing. But ultimately, I don't think that's going to happen. Not, even toss that scene aside, Batman in a post-credit scene would be a bit, to use Gunn's own words here, a bit cameo porny as well, just in terms of, and what that means is, a cameo for the sake of a cameo. And while I think people would be like, oh my God, it's Batman, and you have all that excitement initially, it's like, what's the point? You could. I know people will feel different ways about this, but it would feel just for the sake of it. And I think if that happened, there'd be something a bit, I don't know if I want to use the word tacky, but it would start to feel like, do we need to have Batman in the post-credits? I don't think so. As much as I want to see the DCU Batman at some point in time, I want to see him when the time is right. Not shoehorned into a bloody post-credit scene. So James Orion 8316 says, one thing I'm mildly worried about is all the plot points and characters not getting wrapped up in a satisfying manner by the end of the film. Do you think the Justice Gang, Ultraman, the Engineer, Metamorpho, Rick Flag, Mara Park Kent, and Superman, plus the Daily Planet crew will all have a satisfying arc or conclusion? I think Gunn can do it, but I'm just slightly worried. And we had MKHXY3YX say a very similar thing here, saying, I've heard a lot of people express concerns that there's too much going on here, and while I think it's healthy to exercise caution, I also think that Gunn has proved he can handle multiple moving parts. So I think my biggest issue with these comments, not like these guys posting these in, but the idea of this is, well, let me first say that I understand. I think it is also healthy to exercise caution. You can't go into a film blindly being like, this is going to be amazing. So what I'm trying to get to here is to see other characters and all of these things going on in James Gunn's Superman. You can, absolutely have the opinion to be like, wait, man, there's a few characters in this. Will all of them get justice in the way I would like them to? Will there be a satisfying kind of amount of story attributed to each character that feels that they were worthwhile putting into the film rather than just a glorified guest star kind of spot thing? I completely understand that, but then I feel like a lot of other films with the name of, about one person, do not really get the same heat. And I know it's completely bizarre. I've said this before, and so have many other people. It's a bizarre kind of comparison because it's not in the comic book genre, but that's not what matters. It's the principle that matters here, right? So when you look at Christopher Nolan's and Cillian Murphy's Oppenheimer, that movie is titled after the main character, right? But then, my God, if you haven't seen it, look at the cast list for that movie. Can you even begin to imagine if Superman had that kind of cast list and what people would then say? But nobody thinks about that with Oppenheimer because guess what? I don't think it has the same lens of scrutiny fitted onto the camera of the audience looking at that movie at the time like Superman does. There's this inherent, scrutiny that comes from a lot of people. So yes, there's the healthy apprehension, but there's a lot of off the bat kind of, oh my God, this is so stuffed. How is Gunn got to, how is this a Superman movie? This is an ensemble movie. If you think that's a terrible example, feel free to think that. But now just go after use any example of a movie about a singular person, and you will see that there is most likely a cast the equivalent of Superman or bigger, much bigger. And guess what these side characters do? They help tell the story of that main character. These other castings are in the movie to facilitate the story that propels the main narrative of that main character. So, you got the Daily Planet crew, Lois, Jimmy Olsen, Cat Grant, Ron Troop, to other people there who all won't have crazy big roles. And that's another thing that I kind of want to rant about a teeny bit, is that everyone thinks that when an actor's name is on a cast list, that their role is as big as the main character or one of the leading roles. Since when was that a thing? Just like the Oppenheimer example. You barely had some of the biggest names in that movie in it for more than a few scenes. So I don't think, while I think Jimmy is going to be an important character, or Cat Grant's kind of a big name in the Superman mythos in the comics, I don't think she'll be in it a ton, but she would still serve a purpose in the story to flesh out the Daily Planet side of things and, show a bit of a dynamic between the Daily Planet crew. So I don't know why that's ever really been a talking point. Gunn's excuse for bringing in metahuman compatriots, as he likes to call them. When Gunn was asked quite a while ago, I thought this was a movie about Superman, he replied something I fully agree with, especially in a DCU that we're already kind of in the thick of, heroes being out there, villains being out there for God knows how long. He says, Superman is a man of two worlds. Clark with Lois, Jimmy, and Perry, and Superman with his metahuman compatriots. How could I tell a full story about Clark/Superman without including all areas of his life? So I think that is a very rational explanation there. You're in a world with metahumans already existing. Well, that's a really cool thing to pick up with. And the most logical thing, if you're going to explore a Superman movie where he's already been active, we don't know exactly how long for, but let's just say a couple of years, that you also have other heroes around the world, but also obviously in Metropolis, and to kind of explore that relationship. And my defense of will each character have a satisfying arc or conclusion is that, as I said, not every cast member has the same amount of screen time as another person. And I'm not saying that James or anyone was, saying otherwise, but generally speaking here, that doesn't mean that they're going to have a transformative, almost main protagonist type role in the movie. You can still serve a purpose as a side character with a smaller screen time and also have a satisfying arc. Or even, their arc is like, okay, it fit the purpose for why they're in the movie. They weren't the main character. They weren't even a supporting main character kind of thing, but they were still quite important to the story and the overall lore and mythos of Superman that Gunn was wanting to implement into this film. So an example of that could be Rick Flag Sr. to somewhat obviously show where things have been going since Creature Commandos. He's a character who's probably not going to be in the movie a lot, but the Secretary of Defense maybe enlists the head of Argus, Rick Flag Sr., to do something relevant in the plot to tackle Superman and ask him the hard-hitting question of, do you realize what you almost caused between the US and Baravia through stopping that war? That's just like a probably teeny role in the movie, where I don't think he would be in it beyond that too much. And that's the way I would look at some of the other castings in the film. Now, I'm not saying Metamorpho is going to have a teeny tiny role. I don't know, but I suspect that his role won't be necessarily as big as Guy Gardner, Hawk Girls, and Mr. Terrific. Hopefully, we come to like his character through the way he was written. We get to learn a bit more about him. He has this turning point in where he actually ends up helping Superman, and then, it's happy days. But he didn't have to have this long arc that made it, so worthwhile for that casting in the movie. I don't know. I'm going around in circles right now because you can have the same thing. So, yes, I think there is healthy apprehension to be had. Because, I could go through the whole list of cast members or characters in Superman. You could be like, okay, Boba, justify this character. Boba, justify that character. But I do think that Gunn will balance it fairly well. And I don't think that's overstuffed either. Like, overall, when you kind of look at it in that angle, you start to break down, oh yeah, nobody really had these questions about Oppenheimer with the amount of cast members in that. Wait, actually, some of those cast members had a fulfilling story, or, even if they didn't have to have a massive spotlight on them, they were still cast and there to help facilitate the story of the main character. Oh yeah, Barbie was still about Barbie and her own journey and adventure in that movie. So you see what it boils down to me. I'm not excusing any potential flaws of the involvement of characters in this movie, and what may come when we see it, and any genuine criticisms we could have. But what I do think that really starts this whole conversation is that why is this even truly a conversation when the thing that brought it up in the first place is a cast list that is very similar, if not smaller, to other films titled after a singular character? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, that's where I'm at with that. So Gotcha Potato Chip says, there are talks of a new suit appearing at the end of the movie. Do you think it'll be the same suit but more refined or look completely different? Color, emblem, collar, something more like Reeves' suit but refined? I don't think there's going to be a new suit at all. I don't know why everyone always assumes that. Hey, I'll put my hands up if I'm wrong. But everyone's always like, oh, they could get another suit by the end of the movie. But what's making people suggest that? I think it all, like, I'm not aiming this at Gotcha Potato Chip, but just the general talk about this. The Lore Tech heroes I get, people want more of a comic accurate design. But I feel like it comes from a place of innocent cope that people are, oh, well, that means, they must get another one, right? But that's not based on anything actually tangible. It's just like, surely, our own thoughts of surely they've got to get another one because how could they not? Because this one doesn't look that great, in my opinion, right? So they have to get another one. Or they have to upgrade the Superman suit because I'm not that happy with it. That surely, even if we have it on the screen for most of the screen time of the movie, surely they would have to give us a better, aesthetically pleasing one, right? But what if they don't? What if that's just based on our own subjective disapproval of designs in the movie that when you kind of try and go as objective as you can, it might just be like, no, that's the Superman suit. Those are the Lore-Tech hero suits. I'm not saying that they won't get their own comic book accurate suits down the line or anything like that, or Superman wouldn't get another suit. But I truly do believe, and again, I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong, that the Superman suit you have seen in any and all trailers is the very one you will get to the very end of the movie. So El Vaquero Tiano says, where do we think Supergirl appears in the film? I think this will be probably right towards the end. Now, I'm not saying it's a post-credit scene. Could be, but I think it will be actually in the normal runtime of the film. David Corenswet said that Krypto is more of a foster situation. So I think Kara comes back from whatever she was doing. I think she could even come back from school. I think that's what it might be. That Kara has been away in education. She's learning all of these things about humans. So like university would be a crazy thing in of itself for Kara. So I think she could comedically come in being like, hey, cousin, is Krypto being good? And Clark's kind of like, you don't know the half of it or something. And then cut. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's an example. I think she's maybe been away. She's been on Earth for a few years after being sent away from Argo City to Earth. She arrived as a teenager. Clark has helped her try to integrate into Earth's society, but it's still a very hard thing to do for somebody who was already raised for many, many, many years and grew up amongst Kryptonian society. I've gone over this extensively, but she's doing what she can. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, that movie is all about her truly finding herself. But in the interim, before then, she's been doing the one thing she can do, and that is, what better thing could you do other than try to integrate into Earth's school system, I suppose. It's one way to try and come to a baseline of, oh, Earth, this is what people of Earth looking like my age do. Okay, I think that will happen right towards the ending events. Could be a post-credit scene, though. I know that sounds like a post-credit scene, but I think maybe they might actually just put it in the final 15 minutes of the movie. From Keezy here, do you think Mr. Terrific will have his own character journey in Superman? I remember seeing him and Superman together on set without the other two Justice Gang members. Couple that with the fact that he wasn't in the Peacemaker trailer with the other two, and in the trailer/promo, he seems to be handling Krypto and almost on a quest alongside Lois. I guess the better question is, do you think Superman could, or will, be a launchpad towards a possible project involving the Terrifics in the future? I do think it, to instantly answer your latter part of your comment there, yes, I do think that Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho being in the same film could launch into something like that. There are more individual scenes, I would say, of Mr. Terrific outside the group, the Lore-Tech group as a collective. For example, Mr. Terrific feeding the treats to Krypto, helping out with that situation. Then, from the stadium fight scene, we know from behind the scenes filming that it was Superman versus Ultraman and the Engineer. But guess who else helps out? Mr. Terrific. And we don't see Guy Gardner or Hawkgirl there in any of the behind the scenes filming. Even when Superman takes off and leaves the stadium, it's just him and Ultraman and the Engineer, and Mr. Terrific is KO'd out on the floor, as we see in the official trailer. Then we also see Mr. Terrific with Lois Lane, and as you guys pointed out to me, she did arrive on the ship with him, going to that Luthor Corp beach encampment, where it appears that maybe that little Zeta Tube device could be, because, you know, we also see that other, you know, moment where Lois and Mr. Terrific appear in that other space, that pocket dimension. So I think maybe it's on the beach, where we're going to have to wait and see. But again, Mr. Terrific directly helping out Lois. Where's Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl there? So with Metamorpho in this movie, yeah, as per in the comics, you know, Rex Mason was very lost and really had a rough time coming to terms with what had become of him. Mr. Terrific helped him navigate through that. And it would be pretty cool if there was a similar thing there. And yeah, that could literally, if Gunn wanted it to, we don't want to jump the gun, so to speak, by assuming we are going to get a Terrifics project. But I imagine that they are, in theory, if we hypothetically entertain that Mr. Terrific goes off with Metamorpho, they could go on to create the Terrifics, and that could be a pretty dope thing. But I do absolutely believe that there's something with Mr. Terrific in this marketing material where I'm not saying he's not happy with the Lord Tech thing, but there's something there where it feels like he wants to or does operate with more superhero autonomy compared to the other company branded heroes. And maybe there's something in this film that's like the final nail in the coffin for him, and where he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do this all myself now. Just like Superman. So J. Jonah Jameson points out something very interesting here that I actually haven't considered. So a very important question. What will happen to the countless other prisoners in the pocket dimension? What if Superman releases them all? And that's what creates the Kingdom Come situation. And what J. Jonah Jameson means there is the reverse Kingdom Come theory of how the world, as we went over earlier, has a lot of metahumans in it. I don't think that's the case, because I think that's already the case, you know, with or without these prisoners in the world. I think what you're saying depends on if Luthor is imprisoning these people, whoever he wants, whether they're metahumans or not, with or without the government's consent or like collaboration with Luthor Corp. So if that happens, then yes, every single person would technically have to be released or like observed on a case-by-case basis as to whether they're safe to release to the public and what it was that got them locked in there in the first place. But I've always entertained the idea that this pocket dimension-esque kind of, whether you want to call it the Gunn's iteration of the Phantom Zone, that maybe Luthor founded instead of, I don't know, like other ways we've seen it in the comics, or it being this Kryptonian pocket dimension prism. I mention that because I've seen a lot of people say, Boba, could this be the Phantom Zone? But never say never, right? Adaptations don't copy and paste, so maybe Luthor found it. But anyway, I've always entertained the idea that Luthor Corp being Luthor Corp, and sure, Lex has got all kinds of diabolical, nefarious side hustles, if you will, I'm sure. I do think that he probably provides a service with Luthor Corp in the sense that, for example, you have the head of Argus sent likely from the Secretary of Defense to detain Superman, working with, literally, Lex Luthor's Ultraman and the Engineer. And I can say that confidently because they burst into the fortress with Lex Luthor. So, is it outside the realms of possibility that with what Luthor Corp can offer the government as a private kind of company, and not government-owned or anything like that, hey, government, you kind of need me and what I can offer as a metahuman containment facility. So all I'm saying is maybe the government also like allow this place to exist, and they even send people there because it's a way to keep them contained in a somewhat pocket universe, and where they won't be a threat to, you know, the reality outside of that pocket universe. I think what we have to ask ourselves is this like a secret private prison where Luthor puts people in there that he chooses and that the government doesn't know about? Or is it a place that Luthor Corp have officially made? It's maybe like Black Ops level, but still kind of government acknowledged in the same way, you know, we have secret task forces like Task Force X and Creature Commandos being a government thing. So maybe Luthor's got government contracts like that, which the public don't really know about. So that could still be exposed by Lois Lane as well. Up next from Max here, do you think that by the end of the movie, the engineer could possibly end up being full metal by the end, with more things like Krypto biting her happening? I think what they're going for here, she can access her powers, but the more she uses them or the more she leans into them, I think the more machine than man thing comes in, or the more injured she gets, the more her nanotech will like heal those little bits up, and she will have like silver, chromish looking skin there. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she will be fully metal by the end, because then that would mean that the engineer, like, you know, poor engineer in a way, she would have had to have literally had every part of her skin, like, torn off or injured for it to be really metallic everywhere, right? If that's the way our logic is working here. But definitely from that fight scene in the stadium, you can see that she's looking way more machine-y there, and that will probably progress, or if at the very least, even if she doesn't go full-on machine, I think that's what they're trying to imply for the DCU's future. Like, sure, we could get an Authority movie. We don't know what's going on with that right now. We still don't know if they're going to convert it or change it into an animated movie. But let's just say we are getting it. I think by the time we saw the engineer in the Authority, she would have become maybe way more of her comic book look. So Jack the Flag 5713 says, my theory is that the world doesn't know that Superman is an alien. That's why he is clearly a US American to them. Lex will find out once he gets into the fortress, and that's when he says he's an it. Because at that very moment, Lex figures out that Supes is an alien, and as a consequence, Supes will be arrested. It's interesting because I think some of that is true, while some of it is, you know, we still don't truly know, in the sense that I do think Lex, well, I don't think the world knows that Superman is an alien, a Kryptonian, all of that stuff, right? I think Lex will find out that he's an it after going into the fortress. It will confirm his suspicions that he's probably already had, by the way. Now, when he gets arrested, I don't know if that is really because, oh, we need to detain this alien and ask why he's here on Earth, when did he arrive, and all of this stuff. I think that really is maybe a repercussion to him flying into Baravia and almost inciting a war between the US and Baravia and maybe other countries, just because, you know, stopping a war like that as a seemingly representative of the US, even though, as we know, Superman was like, I wasn't representing anybody except for good, you know, and me. That might be a follow-up to that. But sure, I didn't really consider that Luthor could have told them or something. But I would love to know your guys' theories now with the idea that, yeah, what if the government also learns from Luthor that he's an alien, and they're naturally like, yeah, we kind of want to know more about this. You know, not only the Baravia thing, we need to talk to you about that, but it's also come to our knowledge that you are an alien. For now, I'm just going to say a Baravia consequence, and what Luthor has planned with maybe exposing that Clark is a Kryptonian to the world, that could be done in a slightly different way, maybe a much more public way, in an attempt to, you know, ostracize Superman and make him not feel accepted by anyone. So Mr. Baggins says, I haven't seen anyone mention how the trench running through the water looks exactly the same as the material that is around the portal that Mr. Terrific and Lois walk out of in a separate scene. It looks bluish purple and geometric, or maybe crystalline in structure. Thoughts? I said the same thing in my Superman in-depth trailer breakdown, which Mr. Baggins is. I guess this means you haven't watched it. So if you guys want to know my full thoughts on that, instead of getting into it here, I'm going to plug my other video. I know it's a long video, but it's time-stamped as well. So you can go and check out that whole bluish-purple trench geometric shape thing being linked to what is going on in the pocket dimension as well, because I think there is something to that. So Rolando Rodriguez 8975 says, Lois will be pregnant with Jonathan by the end of the film. What? So guys, that is absolutely everything I'm going to cover today. I wanted to cover more. I honestly say this every single discussion series video. I do apologize if your question didn't get featured in this video, but I will most likely feature it in another Superman discussion series episode. We can do another one of these. I love doing them. I love talking with you guys for a good kind of podcast episode length. I can't wait to read your ideas and theories down in that comment section. If you've made it this far, like honestly, and you've made it and you're watching me right now, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. It really does mean a lot. It helps the video get shared out there to more people through boosting it in the algorithm. And also, if you're watching right now, double check that subscribe button just in case you aren't subscribed already when you may think you are. A big shout out to Fan Home again for sponsoring the channel. Don't forget to check out the link in the top pinned comment or the description down below. But until next time, guys, I really appreciate everything. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.